So, what we are talking about today is the loot box bill. This, I think, kind of snuck under a lot of the media attention because this bill wasn't noticed when everything else was going on in esports and gaming at the same time. But this is actually a pretty big deal, it turns out, because I think this has enormous implications for how it might affect the rest of the gaming industry going forward. So basically, this bill outlaws two things. It outlaws loot boxes, which are defined as any randomized, if we search for the term randomized in here, or partially randomized thing that unlocks a feature of a product, which is a lot of things, or adds or enhances the entertainment value of a product. And then it also outlaws pay to win, as defined by pay to win. As defined by anything that might constitute any kind of progress in the game that you could otherwise unlock through grinding. But pay to win doesn't cover cosmetics, DLC, or difficulty. So the most important thing about this bill, and I think the thing that most people are having trouble understanding about the bill, I think, is who this bill applies to. So we went through the whole bill and we looked through it, and we also went to the bill's frequently asked questions. And there's a really important couple of clauses here. So which games would be covered? The bill's prohibition of pay to win and loot boxes applies to two categories of games. The first one is fine. So it's the category is defined by using a framework inspired by the landmark Children's Online Privacy Protection Act and the recent updated proposal by Senators Hawley and Markey. Determinations of a game's target audience would be made by reference to a number of factors, including subject matter, visual content, use of animated characters, advertising material, and other indicators. So basically, if the game is determined to be for kids, then there wouldn't be any loot boxes in it, and there wouldn't be any pay to win in it, as defined by this bill. Who cares, right? It's not a really big deal. There are some games like Dora the Explorer games I think we could all agree should probably not have loot boxes. The second interesting part of this bill, though, is what I think is going to get a lot of people talking once they see it, which is the prohibition would apply to other games if developers and distributors have constructive knowledge that some users are under the age of 18. So if we look at the actual bill and we try to figure out what constructive knowledge means, prohibition on publication or distribution of video games containing pay-to-win microtransactions or purchasing loot boxes where the publisher has constructive knowledge of any users that are under 18. It is unlawful for a game publisher to publish an interactive digital entertainment product that is not minor-oriented game or update of such a product if such a product contains pay-to-win or loot boxes. The publisher has constructive knowledge that any of its users are under the age of 18. So the way that this could be interpreted is that if a game such as Clash Royale or Magic the Gathering or anything from Supercell, Lords Mobile, pretty much there's a huge list of things. If any of these games actually could be construed to have users that are under the age of 18, they will fall under the jurisdiction of this bill. And it's very easy for those games to be construed to have that player base. It doesn't matter how large that player base is in relation to 18 years old or adults, those games would still fall under this category. So if this happens, this brings in a lot of questions, like would things like Magic the Gathering packs be allowed? Because it offers you a randomized product, right? The definition of loot boxes is so broad that it could apply to almost anything we can imagine in terms of the way that we monetize games today, which has enormous implications for a ton of different online games. Everything from Magic the Gathering to Supercell games to the way that you, to items that you purchase, and also because of the pay to win clause, there's any kind of progression or anything like that that's not in a DLC or difficulty format is also under this law. So this law has the potential to change the way that games monetize. And it also has a lot of bipartisan support right now that apparently both the Democrats and the Republicans want to push this through, which is why we're covering it today, is that it seems to have a lot of bipartisan support in its current form, and it is likely to be enforced at some level. Now, the law seems to be enforceable by the Attorney General, and apparently that the Attorney General is within the full ability to actually enforce this law at any given time. So it's very likely that we might see some version of this come into existence, and that this actually might apply to real life, which is pretty crazy because normally we kind of don't think like that. But that's basically the take on this bill. So my position is a couple of things. One thing is I really hope that this bill gets changed. A lot of bills get changed as they go through the process of becoming law. And it's very possible that lobbyists get involved or someone gets involved to kind of tone down this bill. That happened in Article 17, which is another bill we covered about gaming, where the initial bill looked like insane. But then after that, the bill like looked a lot more reasonable after it came out. So maybe this is just the first iteration of this bill and they're trying to get some like really extreme stuff in it. And maybe it'll look better later. And the second thing I hope is that they sort of narrow the definition of the constructive knowledge definition so that it doesn't fundamentally change things like MTGA or other games that I personally like to play, okay? So I am definitely concerned about this bill. I think right now it's a little bit too early to tell if this is actually gonna have applicability to like how we play games every day, but it's certainly scary that the government is thinking about this. And those are my thoughts on the bill right now. You can read the bill yourself because I'll post it in the links and I'll also post the FAQ. And this is a pretty simple bill to read and it's not too long. It's only about, what, 18 pages? Pretty easy read. The fact basically covers a lot of it too, so I'll link both of those. Thanks. Don't forget to subscribe, okay? That'd mean a lot to me. All right, bye-bye.